But as I said in a recent prior video, I do not think that this seat is lost for the Democrats yet. I think a lot's going to depend on what happens over the next 2 weeks, but I don't think that this seat is lost for them. From the studios, it is Legomicus Selections, and people are talking about Maine, the great state of Maine. As Maine goes, so goes the nation, is what they say. But right now, Maine is still trying to figure out what the hell's going on, because they have a Senate race going on. There is a Republican candidate. It is the incumbent, Susan Collins, but they do not have a Democratic candidate. And that has been the source of a lot of content that you've seen in the news in recent times. So we figured we would ask the question today and actually walk you through some of what the process is going to look like. How are Maine Democrats going to replace Graham Platner? So Graham Platner, of course, was the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate. He had been engulfed in some controversy even prior to the primary, well prior to the primary. It actually started last year in 2025. He won the primary anyway, basically chased the incumbent governor, Janet Mills, out of the race, and ends up dropping out about a month after he wins the primary. So it has been a tumultuous time for Maine Democrats as they are figuring out just how they're going to try to salvage this Senate seat, which under ordinary circumstances would be flippable, but the Democrats are behind the 8 ball right now and they got to get moving. So they have a process in place to try to pick a replacement nominee for Graham Platner. So we're going to actually take you through how this is going to work. So where else can we start right now but with a timetable of events? So on July 10th, Graham Platner formally withdrew from the race. I believe it was on July 8th that he announced that he would be dropping out, and he actually did on the 10th, filing the paperwork. The deadline for him to have withdrawn was Monday, July 13th. So he did it a few days before the deadline, because after July 13th, if you are still on the ballot, that's it. You are the nominee. No changes. So what is going on right now? Candidates for Senate are gathering signatures. So if you want to be considered as a Democratic candidate at the nominating convention that we will get into in a minute, you have to collect signatures. So the petition drive is going on for a bunch of different people. We'll get into who's running in a minute. The petition drive is going on right now, and you will see that there are quite a few names of people that are interested. So we'll see if all of them get the signatures that they need. So July 15th, which is coming up, if you want to be one of the county level delegates at this Maine Democratic nominating convention, you have to announce that by July 15th. You have to formally declare that you want to potentially be a delegate. And then on the 18th and 19th of July, the state counties, the Democratic parties within those counties will choose their delegates to go to the state nominating convention. So you can presume that it's going to be, county Democratic officials, local activists, local Democratic politicians, people of that nature. And then July 25th, that is the nominating convention. That is a Saturday, the nominating convention where Democrats will all get together and they will pick who is going to be the replacement nominee in the U.S. Senate race. And then on July 27th, that is the formal state-mandated deadline for the Democrats to declare who their new nominee is and get them on the ballot. So all of this has to happen over the course of a couple of weeks. So the Maine Democratic Party has to go pretty fast in executing this plan. Now, they could have, as far as I know, just gotten together in a smoky back room and picked somebody else, but they decided that they were not going to do that. So this is going to be an involved process, but it's also going to go very, very quickly. So let's get into the nominating convention, because I think there are people out there who don't quite understand how it's going to work. But it kind of like if you've seen a national party convention like the Republican convention, the Democratic convention, every 4 years, you got delegates and the delegates pick a nominee. The difference is in those national party conventions, The delegates who go to those conventions these days, they are pledged delegates. In this convention, which we'll get to in a second, all of the delegates that you see are going to be unpledged. So good luck trying to figure out who's going to win it beforehand. And especially now, because they haven't even picked who the delegates are yet. So it would be almost impossible to know who's going to come out on top of this thing yet. So as we mentioned, the convention will be Saturday, July 25th. It's going to be at 9 a.m. So a bit of an early call. So if you're a delegate to this convention, you want to make sure that you get your Friday night hotel room out in Bangor, because that is where this is going to be held. So I'm sure the hospitality industry will appreciate a little bit more of a bump, although it is summer, it is tourist season. So, might be a little harder for some people to arrange the accommodations, but that's something that they got to figure out on their own. 601 delegates. At first we thought it was going to be 600, but it's actually going to be 601. So how are these 601 delegates composed? Well, 500 of them, so that's 5/6 of them roughly, are going to be picked by the county parties. So every county in the state, and we will get through the allocation in a second, every county in the state is going to have a certain number of delegates based on essentially proportional to the population. So that's where those 500 are going to come from. And then the other 101 are the state Democratic Central Committee. So roughly 1/6 of the delegates. And mind you, again, all of these delegates are going in unpledged. So as far as how the counties are going to break down those 500 delegates, well, since it's based on population, then you would think that the biggest county is going to get the most delegates. So Cumberland County, the biggest county, that's where Portland is. They got 149. And then York, which is right on the border with New Hampshire, you'll find Kittery there. That is 84. And then Penobscot County, that's Bangor's County, they're at 44. Kennebec County, you'll find Augusta there, that is 40. Androscoggin County's at 31. Hancock County, which is home to beautiful Bar Harbor, and it's actually also, ironically, Graham Platner's home county. That's going to get 23 delegates. Knox getting 18. Oxford getting 17. And then some of the smaller counties. So who is coming to this party that's going to happen in Bangor on July 25th? Well, quite a few candidates have expressed interest, and some of these people ran either for Senate previously in this cycle, ran for governor. Some may have run for Congress. So you got a lot of Democrats that are interested in taking over for Platner here. So one of the foremost candidates that we've heard about is Troy Jackson. He is a former state senator. He ran for governor this year. Dan Kleben, who was running for Senate initially, he is the owner of the Maine beer company. Shenna Bellows, she ran for governor. She is the Secretary of State. David Costello, he ran for Senate this year. Andrea LaFlamme, she was a write-in candidate for Senate this year. Paige Loud ran for the 2nd District nomination. And there's a second page. So Nirav Shah, he was an official at the CDC. And then Jordan Wood, he was running for Senate initially, and then he decided to run in the 2nd District as well. And in fact, there may even be more candidates that I'm not aware of. So if I forgot your name on the graphic, my sincerest apologies, because I don't necessarily even think we're done finding potentially interested candidates for this race. So let's bring it all together now. The Democrats have their work cut out for them now. But as I said in a recent prior video, I do not think that this seat is lost for the Democrats yet. I think a lot's going to depend on what happens over the next 2 weeks, but I don't think that this seat is lost for them. Susan Collins' campaign is probably very happy about how things have gone. There's no two ways about it. However, how happy her campaign is might be short-lived depending on what happens as a result of this Democratic nominating convention. Now, Platner obviously had a populist and progressive message. There are people out there in Maine Democratic circles that have been saying, hey, you know what? We need to find another populist, progressive kind of guy, somebody who has similar ideals to Platner, but obviously not the baggage. So it will be up to Maine Democrats to figure out who that is, or even if they want to go that way. One thing I do know is that an establishment Democrat is probably not going to be especially well received by who I think were Maine Democratic primary voters this year. I mean, you see how well Platner did in the primary, not that he was running against anybody. I'm not sure that a typical establishment Democrat is going to necessarily cut it this time. So someone like a Janet Mills, like that was never going to happen. Somebody like Jared Golden, who is probably too moderate for your average Maine Democrat, especially in the 1st district. I don't think that's going to happen either. So it would be really difficult for us to predict right now who's going to come out on top. There are certain candidates, just based on their background and how they did in some of these other races this year, that I think could potentially do better than others, like Jackson, for example. Maybe somebody like Shenna Bellows, who knows. But the thing is, there's a long way to go in this. And at this point, because the counties haven't even picked their delegates yet, we don't even know who these delegates are. So it's impossible to predict who they're going to go to Bangor and support. So we really don't have any idea yet. But I would expect, especially if there's a lot of candidates, that it's going to be quite the intense convention to try to get somebody over the finish line there. So stay tuned, because I think we're going to get a lot more political drama out of Maine over the next couple of weeks. And then after that, the race is going to reset on July 25th. Again, I don't think the seat's lost yet to the Democrats, but it's up to them to choose wisely, or else things could get a lot easier even still for Susan Collins. But we got to see. Nominating convention coming up on the 25th. We'll have some thoughts afterwards here at Legomicus Selections. Like and subscribe. Follow us on social media. We'll see you soon.